this evening. Joining us this evening is Barry Foat, who acts as the Australian Little League Umpire-in-Chief. I hope I've got that title correct, Barry, and has done so for many years now.
Yeah, sounds like a classy title, mate, but yeah, thank you for that. And thank you to everybody that's joined. My apologies for holding people up.
All good. And so I'll start sharing the presentation, Barry, unless hopefully that should already be coming through.
Yeah, you've got the starting screen up. Yes, that's correct, mate. Yeah.
And so just let me know when you want me to move forward, and we'll get it kicked off for the guys. And so this will be recorded for others to view later on as well.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, okay, that's good. Look, I guess the purpose behind tonight's brief webinar is that we're starting to enter into the tournament season. Most states, unless you're going to play a winter season, would be looking now at tournament play. And consequently, as a flow onto that, umpires also getting ready for national tournaments. So if you can go to the next one for me, please, Matt. During tournament play, there are some specific rules that are modified from those used during regular season play. To add a little bit more confusion, I suppose, Baseball Australia has decided that they would put in their own governance, which we will cover a little bit later on, with regards to tournament play. To understand and to apply and explain the tournament versions of these rules, I guess we've sort of got to start at the start. So this year at the start of the season, or the start of January, Little League International decided that they would have a significant update, which is a rule change. So they've changed the Rule 2.0, and this is important for anybody that's in tournament play. If anybody can remember and I've put there the Rule 2.0, what the at-bat actually is, where a batter, once on base, they must complete the bases to be able to have accounted their at-bat. That is now not a requirement in tournament play. They've taken that out of the tournament play. So long as they front up into the box in any way, shape or form, get on base, they don't have to run the bases. It's regarded as being their at-bat for mandatory play. Okay, next one, Matt, please. Okay, so we're going to cover here game duration. In a lot of states, you wouldn't be playing, you'd play probably a timed game during regular season. Here in Division 1 majors, you must play 6 completed innings. The other thing is you play to a result. In Division 2, which is also played at the national level and at state level, some states may play that as minors, but it's still Division 2. All games are 2 hours, and games can finish with a tied score, whereas back in the Division 1, you must play to a result. And we'll go into that a little bit, a couple of slides down. The Girls Little League, which is a new venture this year at Nationals and has been played already in Queensland, their state titles. All games are going to be exactly the same as the Division 2. So if you're actually playing those games at the moment, then the same rules as Division 2 would apply. Intermediate League, Junior League, Senior League are all 7 innings games and play to a result. Here we have the run rule or mercy rule. Mercy rule is the common name, but if you look at the rule book, it actually refers to it as a run rule, and that is T12 or Tournament Rule 12. You'll always find that down the back end if you've got it on a mobile device. It'll be down the back end of the rule book after Rule 9, If you've got a printed copy, it's in the same place anyway. So Majors Division 1 and 2, 15 runs after 3 or 10 runs after 4. Intermediate, Junior and Senior League is 15 after 4 and 10 after 5 because they're a 7 innings game. Can we go to the next one, please, Matt? Tiebreaker rule. The tiebreaker rule is in play for all tournaments, whether they be state-based or nationals, with the divisions 1 and 2 in majors. If the score is tied after the 6 completed innings, a 7th innings is played as normal. If the score is still tied at the start of the 8th innings and onwards, you will commence with the preceding batter on second base. That is, so if number 5 is up to bat, the batter that was in number 4, he goes on to second base. The same thing applies, obviously, with the intermediate and junior and senior leagues. If the score is tied after 7, we play a complete innings as normal. And then if it's still tied at the 9th, you will then follow on the same as in the lower division with a runner on second base. Go to the next one. Okay, Tournament 9, T9. A lot of states wouldn't play this, but under tournament rules, and that is for your state-based tournaments, as well as the nationals, all tournament teams, junior league and below, must adopt a policy of a continuous batting order. That will include all players on the team list present at the start of the game to appear in batting order. Each player is required to bat in his or her respective spot, and you can enter a player or re-enter defensively in the game at any time. And each player must have at least one at-bat. The one at-bat is the requirement for the mandatory play. If the game's shortened, because of the run rule, and you don't get, if you've got a roster of 12, it's nearly easy. If you've got a roster of 14, then that becomes a problem. And then it's worked out that it's considered a game anyway. But that's up to the scorers and the tournament director normally to sort that business out. That has nothing to do with the umpires. Next one, mate. This is the BA governance that I've got up there, which is to do with mandatory play. So what's happened here is that Baseball Australia has changed. If you look at the rule book as such, it only indicates that for mandatory play, a player must only have one at-bat. For those of you that have been perhaps umpiring for a while, you will already know that going back, you used to have one at-bat, and depending on the size of the roster, whether you had 3 defensive outs or 6 defensive outs, well, Baseball Australia has put that in. So if the team has got a roster of 13 or more eligible players in uniform, then every player on a team roster shall participate in each game for a minimum of 3 consecutive. And the important part there is consecutive. He can't play 2 in this innings and then skip an innings and play another. He must do it as consecutive. If the tournament team has 12 or fewer eligible players, then it's 6 defensive outs. There is a penalty in there. Again, that's not our responsibility. The other thing I want to add also is that it is not the umpire's responsibility to ensure that the coach has had his or got his mandatory plays. It's his responsibility totally to make sure that everybody has his mandatory play. However, a lot of umpires will perhaps maybe make little marks, ticks or whatever on their lineup card, and they'll know that if a player has not come up or hasn't been out for his defensive outs, it's wise to probably mention it, because it's always good to try and eliminate a problem before it actually becomes a problem. So if you do see it, it doesn't hurt to try and mention, hey, listen, Johnny hasn't completed his mandatory play. Or as I say to the umpires at tournaments, just say to the coach, are you sure all of your players have completed their mandatory play? Now, once that's happened, then it's the coach's responsibility totally. Let's go to the next one, shall we? Courtesy runner. I've only put that in for a bit of FYI. The teams may have a courtesy runner. Doesn't say they have to. Doesn't matter what size roster they've got. Doesn't say they have to. But now the courtesy runner is for the catcher or pitcher of record only. And it's when two are out. Senior League is a little different because they still use the special pinch runner, the SPR rule, which if you go into your rule book, you can double check what that is. But the brief on it is that it may be used up to twice per game and only once in an innings. It does not constitute a substitution. And the same runner, he cannot have the SPR twice. So if it's the catcher, he cannot have the SPR run for him twice. Let's go to the next one. This is, again, probably for your information more so than anything. Again, it's another one that's not your responsibility, but it's one that you, if you get the feel of the game as you're going, a player who has played catcher for 3 innings or less may move to the pitching position. That's in majors, intermediate league and junior league. The catcher is not eligible to pitch if he's caught in 4 innings or more. So 3 is the magical number. 1 pitch, even a warm-up pitch, can constitute a fact that he's actually thrown a pitch and therefore could make him ineligible to go to the catching position. In the reverse of that, a pitcher who reaches 40 pitches or less may move to the catcher position and finish the batter. So he can move to the catcher, get to 40, but if he's finishing a batter, that does not count against him. It's not extra pitches. Like if he's throwing 41, which you'll see a little bit lower there. If he's actually pitched 41, he's ineligible to catch. Okay. Next one. This is one that always seems to want to try and trick a lot of people up with the substitutions or re-entries for that matter. I've tried to sort of put it out there in some sort of a flow chart with, firstly, the defensive subs must be made whilst the team is on defence, which is, I guess, pretty common sense. Offensive subs must be made at the time of the offensive player having their turn at bat or is on base. A player may be entered or re-entered defensively in the game at any time, with, I guess, sort of an exception or a rider there, and that's what the next one's about, that with the CBO in place, all people on the roster are starters. So when you're reading your substitutions re-entry rule, it helps to know that everybody is a starter. The other thing is, of course, that provided that whoever's being entered and or re-entered, they've had the player that they're going in for will get their mandatory play. Got to make sure that they get the mandatory play in as well. Majors division, a pitcher can remain in the game but move to a different position. He cannot return as a pitcher, though. The exceptions to that, obviously, which is on the next one, thanks, Matt. The exceptions to that is the intermediate, junior league and senior league, that if you take them off the mound, put them in another position, they can actually go back to the mound, but only once per game. Next one, mate. So a couple of things here you've got to be conversant with if you're doing tournament, state titles, or dare I say going internationals at any level. You have to be conversant with your pitching restrictions. So in other words, how many is the lad allowed to throw? Again, it's not your responsibility, but it's something you should be conversant with. You should also be conversant with the pitcher ruling. How does an intentional walk work these days? What do you need with the intentional walk? Obviously, substitutions and re-entries. And the big one, as is happening now in regular season, the coach may not warm up the pitcher. That's an important one. Go to the next one.
So Barry, just on that intentional walk, is it similar to other leagues now where it's just the manager or coach just shows up 4 fingers and that's good enough? That's all that's required?
Yeah, or he would converse, but yeah, the 4 fingers, but also at the same time.
Or somebody yelling and screaming at you.
Something like that, yeah. Yeah, hopefully that wouldn't happen in a Little League Majors Division 2 game, but I hear what you're saying. Yeah, so, and also that's for all grades now. It used to only be in the higher grades, then they brought it down or made it in had in the Majors Division 1 and 2. Well, now they've gone to Intermediate League and Junior League. So, it makes it a little bit easier. So coaches may not warm up. In Senior League, obviously, substitutions, re-entry, the special pinch runner rule, the pitcher-catcher again. You should be very conversant with the designated hitter rule. Now, I haven't covered that in the slides, but one of the things with the designated hitter rule that seems to trick everybody, firstly, it must be on the lineup before the game starts when it's actually handed to you, and it can be for any position on that lineup. In a lot of cases, people seem to think it's for the pitcher only. No, it can be for anybody. The designated hitter rule applies to any person that's on that roster. Pitching restrictions, and again, the coach may not warm up the pitcher.
And so is there a difference here with intentional walks between Senior League and
No, just so notify. Just notify and So that covers the slides, and I guess that it's only covering a small portion of the tournament rules. The areas you need to be probably getting into is that area of Rule 3, which is covering a lot of the at bats, etc. And other than that, really, just get into the rule book and read up on your tournament play rules, because there's little point in getting out there and saying, oh, yeah, I'm not sure. The other thing that I guess becomes prevalent is you may have a state scenario that for whatever reason, they want to change some of the rules. So it's not necessarily going to be for yours out of the rule book. You may have a state ruling on how they're going to play, say for argument's sake, the mandatory play. I know here in Brisbane, we have a Division 2 and a Division 3 in that Little League age group. Basically the Division 3 Rocky Ball players, but we have a different set of rules for those whereby they hit off a tee, whereas in tournament play, if they got to Sydney, that wouldn't happen. But they use a tee here just to make it easier. They also cut down the length of time for the game in some of those areas. So other than that, I guess that sort of covers that. Have we got any questions at all, Matt, that I'll try and remember, of course, that what I don't know, I'm going to make up pretty quick.
Of course, and so there's no questions at the moment, but for everybody, if you do have any questions, please put them into the chat section or Q&A section. We'll try and address them now. But equally, if there aren't, people are still welcome. If you do have questions after the event, please feel free to email us at development@avu.org.au, and we'll get those questions routed to the right person, such as Barry or Mark Gilmore.
Yeah, well, I see there's a couple of blokes on there from Brisbane, actually. They've got my email address here in Queensland. So, and Matt, I don't mind you guys even advertising that at some place if you wanted it to. That's the S Dull one too, not my own one. Which I think you've been using today, but the S Dull, which you'll find on the QBUA website. But more than happy to try and help somebody out.
We'll make that available for everybody after the event. And also, Barry, are there any other tips that you might have at the tournament play, trying to help move mandatory play along, get as much game time as possible? Are there any tips and tricks to try and get as much game time as possible out there, motivating the players to get out there?
There's dozens of them, I suppose, and the fact that our biggest problem, as you quite rightly alluded to, Matt, is loss of time. And it's one of the things that I'd turn up to a field and say, we're playing 6 innings today. No, we're not. We're playing 2 hours. We're playing 6 innings today. So you go out with that mentality. So if the rules of the tournament are saying 4 innings, 5, whatever it says, that's what you're playing. You're not playing time. Time becomes a subsequent. So how do we get that in? You're quite right. The moment that you've had your chat, coach, I want a fielding side. You don't even give him time to, dare I say, stand out front of the dugout and now give him another 5-minute pep talk before he sends him out to the field. I want a fielding side. Batter should be ready. And if not, get him up close to you. There are no on-deck circles in the Little League Majors division, but you can still get him up a little bit closer without getting himself in the road of a pitched warm-up ball type of thing. You then just keep going with that. Don't go to the fence and talk to your mate in between innings. Once the third out is done, if you want to grab a drink, then go back and step up on the line. Because now I'm here, I'm ready to start. Coach, I need a fielding side if they're slow coming out. So that's one of the ways that, like, I used to try and get the teams involved, or even if times walking down in front of the dugout and just saying, come on, guys, I want a fielding side. And all of a sudden you see all these 10 kids race out onto the diamond. It's just a matter, you have to be proactive yourself. And you can't be proactive if you're going to the fence and look, without being disrespectful to club umpires that, and we've got a program here in Queensland, a mentoring program where we try to get to a lot of them on a Saturday morning. But there's ones we miss, obviously, because there's not enough of me. But that's what we try and impress upon them. Just because you're a club umpire, I don't want you going to the fence and having a chat with the groundsman or with the coach from the next game or whatever because you know him. No, you're doing this game. Okay.
And that includes your other, between the plate umpire and the base umpire. They don't need to chat and meet up every half inning.
No, they don't. But they seem to want to have a meeting. So my favourite response is, what were you having a meeting about? So, the same thing. Grab a drink if you're on base. Grab a drink, go back, stand, you're ready to go. That way you will get those innings in. If the coach wants to be continually talking to his fielders, it's one of the things that annoy me. Save it for training night. like, I'm sorry, but the kids are only going to play to a certain standard anyway. And I'm trying not to be disrespectful to anybody, but it just does get to a point, Matt, as you know, that hang on a minute, we're losing time here. Okay, especially in a 6 innings game where there's no time limit, that becomes now more prevalent, because rather than working on 2 hours, all of a sudden that's blowing out to 2.5 hours, which then puts the whole roster for the games following it out of whack. The other
Especially if
thing
you're
I
working 3 or 4 games a day, if you're at a state tournament, that's extra time you've got out there, right? And so,
yeah, well, like I've got our state titles not this weekend, the following weekend, and 38 teams, I think, just in the intermediate, junior, and little league. Yeah, we've got a time frame to work to, but I can see that that sunset dusk night time will be coming into play most nights, and I think we get a bit more sun than you blokes do. So, yeah, it's very important that you do that. The other thing that I like to do is to make sure that when I get out there, I introduce myself to the scorers first up. And I'll just say, look, I'm Barry. If you have a problem, give me a yell. Otherwise, I'll leave you alone, you leave me alone, type of thing, especially at tournament play. A lot of times for tournament play, we have scorers that are new, and are being taught or learning, and have just come from club ball, so it's hard for them as well. So one of the things that you've got to do is make sure you keep your own count, get your own count, rather than having to turn around, oh, what was the count? Okay, so you have to concentrate all the time on your own job, and that is call plenty of strikes.
That's one way to speed the game up. Get through your 6 innings. Encourage them to swing the bat, right?
Well, yeah, and encourage them to swing the bat. So how do you do that? I see every weekend, I see the variation of strike zones, Matt, from a belt buckle, shoebox through to a barn door.
Yes.
And it's hard to teach people, I want a liberal zone, because that word liberal is bloody difficult to police. Your idea of liberal, my idea of liberal, and a number of the people on tonight, their idea of liberal, yeah, Absolutely. It just doesn't work. So for that reason, I keep saying to umpires, just think about it in this light then. If you can't understand liberal and you can't work that out, have you played the game? Oh, yeah. Well, if you've played the game and you could swing the bat and hit that ball, do you think that's worthy of it being a strike? Now, obviously, of course, if it's at eyebrow level, we don't want to go doing that, because they'd need a step ladder accordingly. However, if you get that belief that if that ball was hittable, why wasn't it called a strike? Yes, it's outside off the plate maybe, but was it still hittable? So that's the sort of thing that I look at, that to get umpires into the habit of calling more strikes. Try to imagine that little square down there on the ground is not really 17 inches. It can be 20 inches. Admittedly, what I'll give you on the outside, I shave off the inside, because at the younger age group, you take the bat out of their hand. If it's a little bit off the plate on the inside, the young fellas just can't get the bat around quick enough. So
you don't want to encourage those pitchers to throw inside and hit batters, right? Because the lack of control, we don't want to encourage that.
No, exactly. When they're getting paid a lot of money, they get taught how to do that then. But at under 12 level, yeah, we don't want kids getting hit by that inside pitch. So, yeah, I tend to leave that alone totally. So that's one of the other things, calling more strikes. But just to continually keep at the coaches. When you get up into the area where you've got the intermediate league, junior league, senior league, where there's balks involved, yeah, okay. Probably, again, junior league, intermediate league, try and educate the pitcher.
Yeah.
Hey, catcher, tell him he's got to stop. We're not just going to come out and balk all day long. Now, I know that's not in any rule book, but in a lot of cases, intermediate league, which comes before junior league, the kids are still learning, even though they've got themselves to national level. A lot of people will argue the toss on that particular philosophy. Of course, you don't do it all the time. You don't sort of give him 3 or 4 goes. You'll just say, hey, tell him he's got to stop. If he doesn't, well, then the only way you'll teach him is to balk him accordingly. Okay, so they're all things to help speed the game up, I guess. So other than that, really, no tips, mate. Be professional in what you're doing. If you give the coach the courtesy, I would hope that they give you the courtesy back. Those that
Respect
don't,
it, right?
Yeah, respect, courtesy. Yeah, you're right. You'll get some that'll be hot under the collar for a reason, but yeah, let him have his say. When what did Robbo used to say to me? Once he starts to repeat himself, well, he's done, isn't he? He's finished. He's run out of wind. So,
yes.
Yeah. So look, tournament play, great time of the year. Regular season is too, but also tournament play is a great time of the year where you're going to get the opportunity to perhaps see the best of the best within your region, within your state. And if you can do more of those, and I suggest, you volunteer to your state association or to your region. I assume down like Cronulla and those are a separate region. They'd have their own band of umpires in Sydney. We up here, we sort of cover everybody, but we all live in our own little regions, a half a dozen of the regions. So I encourage our guys to contact their region and see if they need somebody to umpire one of their state teams, which I know that a number of them have done. And if you can do more of these, it's going to improve your umpiring as you go, because we certainly, and I'm sure a lot of the other states would do it too, where you've got some coordinator come instructor come mentors that would turn up at those titles and at least talk to you at the end of a game and say, hey, look, if you do this, it might help you, or if you do that, it might help you. So, all right.
And so by that token, for everybody that's on the call and for those watching the recording later on, if you do have questions ongoing, that's what we're here for, right? So please do reach out again at development@abu.org.au or Facebook as well. So please, if you've got questions post-game, this happened, please do reach out. Between myself, Barry, and a few of the other crew at ABU, we'd be delighted to help and help you on that journey for you.